Hello and welcome to Frank Boomer at Large. Our last episode was about Napoleon and his defeat at Waterloo. But something else happened at the end of the Battle of Waterloo. 200 years might have passed since Napoleon was defeated at Waterloo, but some things in war and finance do not change, such as the absolute importance of being ahead of the game. Nathan Rothschild cleaned up on the gilt markets thanks to his rapid, reliable, finely honed communications system that brought him news of Wellington's victory ahead of anyone else in Westminster and the city. The Battle of Waterloo on June 18, 1815, 200 years ago this week, finally banished the specter of Napoleon's domination of Europe. No one was more delighted than the denizens of the London Stock Exchange. Nathan Rothschild, especially, as gilts soared on the good news. For the preceding 2 decades of war since the French Revolution, bond prices have been buffeted by news from battlefields of victory by Britain or its allies sent prices north since it reduced the risk of defeat, default, and more government borrowing. A defeat sent prices south for the opposite reasons. These conditions provided plenty of opportunity for market manipulation through the manufacture of battlefield news, given that information traveled at the speed of horses and sailing ships. The most notorious scam occurred in February of 1814. Napoleon was in trouble, and his fall seemed likely. A bungling concert party of speculators built up huge position in gilts, expecting prices to rise. The plan was to trade within the account, meaning that they only had to put up a modest amount of margin. But then came the news of French successes that left them facing large losses. 2 days before the end of the account, an officer dressed in the uniform of aide-de-camp to the British commander in France appeared in Dover in the middle of the night, claiming to have just crossed the channel with urgent news. Napoleon had been killed by Cossacks and the French monarchy restored. Now he sent this word to the Dover port admiral, evidently hoping that he would inform the government via the Admiralty's system of semaphore relay stations, resulting in an official announcement. But it was too foggy for the semaphore system to operate. The next day around noon, an open carriage containing 3 men dressed as French royalist officers crying "Vive le Roi" drove around the city. Again, the story was that Napoleon was dead and the French monarchy restored. They then supposedly set off for Downing Street to tell the Prime Minister. The appearance of the royalists and their news was a tonic for the gilt prices that rose 20%. But They slumped again when stock exchange messengers to Whitehall returned without confirmation. The authorities were unamused by the pantomime hoax, and the stock exchange quickly identified sales by 7 individuals that stank to high heaven. Sensationally, their number included Lord Cochrane, MP, a naval hero and a real-life model for Horatio Hornblower, or N. They were found guilty of fraud and jailed for a year. Cochrane went abroad and commanded the Chilean and Brazilian navies in their wars of independence, enjoying markedly greater success than in guilt manipulation. Now we have Rothschild. Nathan Rothschild, founder of the London firm, was supremely aware of the value of early and accurate information. His firm's fortune was made by supplying the Duke of Wellington's army in Spain and France with gold and silver to pay the troops. Rapid and reliable communications were crucial for his complex and risky payment and arbitrage operations. Rothschild had set up a private courier system with shipping agents in Dover, Calais, and Ostend with fast light vessels ready to sail at any time. There were relays of horses to speed messages from the Channel to London. And a farm on the coast of Hythe for the courier pigeons. As night descended at Waterloo on June 18th, a Rothschild agent dashed to Dunkirk, conveyed by a Rothschild ship and Rothschild steeds. Nathan received news of the victory on the night of Monday the 19th, just 24 hours afterwards. Wellington's official messenger didn't arrive until Wednesday evening. In the meantime, Nathan called on the Prime Minister but was refused entry by a butler because the Prime Minister was resting. His duty done, he proceeded to the stock exchange where he was in sole possession of the momentous news. It is not known how much Rothschild made from Waterloo, but it must have been a great deal. The collective assets of the 5 Rothschild brothers in spring of 1815 came to £500,000 sterling, at a time when the average wage was $50 sterling per year. In July of 1816, it was £1 million sterling. The Iron Duke observed that Waterloo was a damn close run thing. The nearest run thing you ever saw in your life, he said. Maybe on the battlefield, but not on the stock exchange with Rothschild's information system. And so there you have it. Rothschild now, of course, still a prominent name in banking circles. So that's one little jewel we plucked out. So it was not like an accident that the gilt market was ravaged for the benefit, it seems, of our dear friend, Mr. Rothschild. And so now the issue is this immense wealth. How much was actually garnered? It's probably not information we're going to ever know. But you can see that the power behind money changed after Waterloo. And so now it only stands to look at the history and the actions of the British Empire from that point to see if their politics were being altered